I hadn't seen her in 6 years, but when she said it, "You've grown into a man," it felt like the room shifted, like the air remembered something I didn't. She stood near the kitchen counter, one hand resting on the rim of a wine glass she wasn't drinking from. My father had gone upstairs to take a call, leaving us in a silence that wasn't really silent. It was full of things we didn't know how to name yet. The same woman who used to ask if I was keeping up with my studies now looked at me like she was measuring distance. Not in years, but in something else. Her name was Clara, and it used to sound ordinary. Now it didn't. She smiled a little, polite at first. "You always had that look," she said, eyes catching mine before slipping away. "What look?" I asked. "That you were trying to figure people out." Her voice hadn't changed, soft, low, the kind that seemed to linger in the corners of a room after she spoke. She wore a black blouse, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back loosely like she hadn't meant to impress anyone, but somehow still did. I said something, I don't even remember what, and she laughed, quiet and sudden. The sound felt like memory and danger at once. I caught myself watching the way her fingers circled the stem of the glass. The tiny movement pulled my attention like gravity. She noticed, maybe. Her eyes flicked toward me, then down again. The kitchen light was warm, too warm. It hummed faintly, or maybe that was me. She asked about university. I tried to sound normal, but my voice came out too even, like I was pretending to be older than I was. She tilted her head, studying me. Not mockingly, but with something between curiosity and restraint. "You look different," she said after a pause. "So do you," I said. Her mouth twitched like she almost smiled. "That's kind of you." The silence after that stretched, not awkward exactly, just aware, like the world had stepped back and left us there, standing too close for a conversation that small. Her perfume was faint, not sweet, something clean, almost sharp, and it made me think of her office when I was a kid, all papers and coffee and late afternoons. She'd been my father's colleague for years, always the calm one in meetings, the one who never said more than she had to. Now, that same restraint looked like something else entirely. I leaned against the counter beside her. Our elbows almost touched. She shifted slightly, not away, just enough that I noticed. "Your father talks about you a lot," she said. "Hopefully the good things." "Mostly," she replied, smiling without looking up. There was a faint tremor in her breath when she spoke, or maybe it was mine. When the conversation faltered, I found myself searching for anything to keep it going. A story, a question, a reason to stay in that moment. But she stayed quiet, eyes on the glass, thumb tracing slow circles across it. And then, for a second that felt longer than it should have, she looked up. Her gaze caught mine and didn't move. Nothing happened, no words, no touch. But it felt like everything leaned forward at once. The air thickened. My chest felt too small. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then stopped. Her phone buzzed on the counter, sudden and sharp. She glanced at the screen, her jaw tightening before she picked it up. "Excuse me," she said softly, and stepped into the hallway. I stood there, staring at the half-empty glass, her perfume still in the air, and realized I didn't want her to answer that call. She came back into the kitchen a few minutes later, phone in hand, expression neutral. Whatever that call was, it had pulled her somewhere else for a moment. But when her eyes found mine again, the distance shrank, like the air had rearranged itself to make room for us. My father's voice floated faintly from upstairs, muffled, distracted. The sound of a man too absorbed in business to notice silence happening below him. Clara leaned against the counter again, not as close as before, but close enough that I could see the tiny pulse in her neck. She cleared her throat lightly. "Sorry. That was work. Always work." I nodded. "You never stop, do you?" A soft exhale, half a laugh. "I don't really know how to anymore." She said it so simply, but there was a weight under the words. Something tired, familiar. I wanted to ask more, but she was already changing the subject. "So, you're studying psychology now, right?" "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Guess I inherited the habit of trying to understand people who don't want to be understood." That made her glance at me, quick and sharp. Then her eyes softened. "Careful," she said. "That habit can make you lonely." Her tone was too even to be casual. For a second, she seemed older than the years between us. Not because of age, but because she'd already been through something I hadn't yet learned to name. The kind of solitude that doesn't come from being alone, but from being unseen. I wondered about her marriage. She never talked about it when she and my father worked together. I only remembered once seeing her husband at a company dinner. Stiff, polite, more interested in his watch than the woman beside him. I caught myself staring again. The line of her collarbone, the way a strand of hair had slipped loose from her bun. I looked away before she noticed, but I could feel my pulse betraying me. "Clara," I said quietly, "can I ask you something?" She tilted her head, a little wary. "Depends what it is. Why did you stop coming around?" Her lips parted, then closed. The answer hovered there, unsaid. She turned toward the sink, rinsing her glass even though it was already clean. "People talk," she said finally. "And your father, well, he thought it was better if I kept some distance. You were younger then." I felt something sharp twist in my chest. "And now?" She dried her hands with a towel, slow, deliberate. "Now you're not." The silence that followed was electric. She didn't look at me, but the way her shoulders tightened said enough. I took a step closer, just one. The scent of her perfume reached me again, softer this time, like it had grown tired of pretending not to exist. She turned slightly, her arm brushing mine. Neither of us moved. "Clara," I whispered, not sure what I meant to say after that. Her breath hitched, a small, fragile sound. She looked up, eyes searching mine for something she couldn't admit out loud. Then she said, almost under her breath, "You shouldn't look at me like that. I can't help it." Her hand trembled slightly as she reached past me to set the towel down. The back of her fingers grazed my wrist. Just that. A brief, unplanned touch, but it felt like confession. She didn't pull away right away. And when she finally did, it wasn't because she wanted to. It was because we both heard footsteps on the stairs. She stepped back, straightening, her voice low but steady. "He's coming." I nodded, forcing a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. But before my father entered the room, she met my eyes once more. And this time, she didn't look away. It happened again 2 nights later. My father had asked her to stop by and help finalize a report for the board. He'd fallen asleep on the couch halfway through a documentary, leaving the two of us in the living room surrounded by papers, laptops, and too much quiet. Clara was seated across from me at the coffee table, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. The lamp cast a soft light on her face, tracing every line like the world was daring me to notice. I did. Couldn't not. She sighed, rubbing her temple. "I swear these figures are never right the first time. Maybe you just need someone to double-check your math," I said, teasing lightly. Her eyes flicked up. "Oh, you think you're qualified now?" I shrugged. "You said I've grown into a man. Might as well start proving it." That earned the faintest smile, quick, then gone. But it lingered somewhere between us anyway. The sound of the clock filled the space. Every second felt louder than it should. She leaned over the papers, reaching for her pen. It rolled toward me instead. I caught it before it hit the floor, and when I handed it back, her fingers brushed mine. Neither of us moved fast enough to pretend it was nothing. The contact was small, almost polite, but it lit something that both of us tried to hide. Clara looked down, focused too hard on the document. "You should be careful," she murmured. "Of what?" She hesitated. "You don't know what this looks like." I leaned back slightly, watching her. "Do you?" That question sat there, heavy, until she let out a small, uneven breath. "Yes," she said quietly. For a while we worked in silence. The glow of the screen painted her skin in soft gold. Every time she shifted, my body reacted before my thoughts caught up. Her scent, the quiet sound of her sleeve brushing the table, the way her lips tightened when she was trying not to look at me. I thought about the first time I met her, how she'd crouched down to my height, told me I looked like my father, then smiled in a way that didn't belong to anyone else. That memory shouldn't have felt dangerous. But now it did. A soft knock at the door snapped us both upright. "Clara?" My father's voice called, groggy. "Everything okay?" She straightened immediately, closing her laptop halfway. "Yes, just finishing the edits. Go back to sleep, James." "All right," he mumbled, footsteps retreating. She exhaled, shoulders dropping. I hadn't realized how close I'd leaned in until she turned her head and our faces were inches apart. Neither of us moved. Her breath touched my cheek, warm, hesitant. My pulse pounded in my ears. "Clara," I said, almost a whisper. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth, then back up. For a split second, I thought she'd close the distance. She didn't. Instead, she pushed her chair back slightly. The sound of it scraping the floor was louder than it should have been. "This isn't fair," she said, voice barely holding steady. "To who?" "To you," she said, "and maybe to me." Her hand brushed the edge of the table. A nervous, restless movement, then stopped. "I should go." She gathered her papers with trembling fingers. I watched her, wanting to stop her, but she looked up before I could speak. And whatever she saw in my eyes made her falter. For a heartbeat, she didn't move at all. Then, quietly, she said, "You make it very hard to do the right thing." She left without looking back, but the faint scent of her perfume clung to the chair where she'd been sitting, like proof that she hadn't really left at all. That it rained that evening. The kind that turns every streetlight into a blur, the world washed in silver and silence. I hadn't expected to see her. But when I opened the door to leave, she was there. Standing under the awning, rain dripping from her coat, her hair half undone. "Clara?" "I tried calling," she said, voice uneven. "Your father's out of town. I thought—" She stopped herself, shaking her head. "I shouldn't have come." But she didn't leave. I stepped aside without thinking. She hesitated for a second, then walked in, brushing past me. The scent of rain and her perfume mixed in the air, clean, sharp, and unbearably familiar. Her coat clung to her shoulders, wet at the edges. I offered a towel, but she didn't take it. She just looked at me. Really looked, like she was searching for something she already knew she shouldn't find. "You shouldn't be here," I said quietly. "I know." Her voice broke on the last word. I watched her take a slow breath, steadying herself. The silence between us stretched and trembled, charged and fragile. "I've been trying to forget that night," she said finally. "But it keeps replaying. That look you gave me, what I almost—" She stopped again, eyes flicking away. I took a step closer. "Say it." Her jaw tightened. "Don't make me. I need to hear it." She met my gaze, eyes glassy, desperate. "I wanted to kiss you." The words hit harder than I expected. Neither of us moved for a moment, but something shifted. Like the air itself couldn't bear the restraint anymore. I reached out, slowly, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. My fingers brushed a strand of hair from her face, tucking it behind her ear. Her breath caught, shallow, trembling. "You think I don't feel this too?" I whispered. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The rain outside grew louder, a soft roar against the windows. She was close enough that I could see the faint pulse at her throat, the rise and fall of her chest as she tried, and failed, to steady her breathing. "Clara?" I said, my voice barely a sound. "I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter." She closed her eyes for a moment, as if the words hurt more than they should. "It's not supposed to," she whispered. "But it does." She looked at me again, eyes full of conflict, half wanting, half terrified. "If I let this happen, I lose everything," she said. I stepped closer, the space between us shrinking to nothing. "Then why are you here?" That stopped her. Her mouth opened, but instead of answering, she reached out. Fingertips grazing my sleeve, a touch so light it might have been accidental if her hand hadn't stayed there. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I can't stay away anymore." That was it, the confession that couldn't be taken back. We stood there, breath to breath, neither daring to move first. My hand found her waist, hesitant, and she didn't pull away. Her body leaned into mine, just barely, like gravity had made the choice for her. The moment stretched, too full, too fragile, until she tilted her head up, eyes flicking down to my mouth. Then, just as the world seemed to narrow to that single heartbeat, her phone buzzed again. Loud, relentless. She froze. I felt her breath catch against my skin. The sound broke the spell. She stepped back, trembling. I have to. Don't, I said, but she was already reaching for it, her hand shaking. The screen lit, her face pale blue. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at me, eyes wide and unguarded. If I don't stop this now, she whispered, I won't be able to. And before I could reply, she turned, and the door clicked behind her, leaving the echo of what almost happened hanging in the rain. 3 days. That's how long it took before I saw her again. I tried to convince myself it would fade, that I'd wake up one morning and she'd go back to being what she was supposed to be. My father's colleague, a name in his phone, a polite smile over dinner. But when she texted, "We need to talk," I didn't even hesitate. She asked to meet at the cafe near her office. Neutral ground, I guessed. But the way her fingers tightened around her coffee cup told me there was nothing neutral about what was coming. You shouldn't have come, she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. You're the one who asked me to. She sighed, shaking her head. I shouldn't have. For a moment neither of us spoke. The hum of conversation around us felt distant, like we were sealed inside something fragile. Finally, she looked up. Your father knows. The words landed like a punch. What? She nodded slowly. He didn't say how much he saw, just that he noticed things. Her voice faltered. He asked me to take some time off, to think. I leaned back, trying to breathe, but the air felt thin. And what did you tell him? That he was wrong. Her voice cracked on the lie. She didn't need to explain. It was written all over her face. Something in me twisted, guilt, maybe, or something sharper. You lied for me. She looked down at her hands. No, I lied for both of us. I wanted to reach for her, but she sat too still, her composure stretched thin. He said you reminded him of himself when he was younger, she said, almost to herself. I didn't know what to do with that. I swallowed hard. Does he think something happened? He doesn't need proof, she said softly. He just needed to see how you looked at me. That silenced me, because she was right. I'd never been good at hiding it. A long pause. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, do you regret it? Her question caught me off guard. No, I said. Not even a little. That broke something in her. I saw it in the way her breath shook, how her shoulders tensed as if holding herself together took effort. Don't say that, she said. Why not? It's the truth. Her eyes met mine, sudden and fierce. Because if I believe you, I'll ruin everything I've spent years protecting. The cafe felt smaller suddenly, the noise fading to a dull hum. She stood, gathering her coat, her movements sharp, restless. I stood too, blocking her path before I could think better of it. Clara? Don't, she whispered, stepping close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath. Don't make this harder. I reached up, fingers brushing her sleeve. She froze, not because she wanted to pull away, but because she couldn't decide if she should. Her pulse fluttered under my fingertips. I can't undo what you've started, she said, voice shaking. I tried. God knows I tried. Then stop trying. Her laugh was quiet, broken. You think it's that simple? No, I said, but I think it's real. That stopped her. For a second, her face softened, like she wanted to believe it too. Then she whispered, he asked me to mentor you for the summer. I blinked. What? Her lips pressed into a thin line. He said it would be good for you, for your career. We stood there, inches apart, the weight of that twist hanging between us. What had been dangerous before had just become impossible. And yet, as she brushed past me to leave, her shoulder grazed mine. Slow, deliberate. And for the first time, she didn't say goodbye. She only said, don't make me choose, because I don't know if I can choose right. Then she was gone, and the door swung closed behind her, leaving the air full of everything neither of us had the courage to finish. The office was almost empty that night. End of quarter, half the staff already gone. The hum of the city seeped through the tall windows, and the rain from earlier had left the air heavy, still. Clara sat at her desk, light from her monitor flickering across her face. I stood in the doorway watching her before she noticed me. "You shouldn't be here," she said without looking up. "You keep saying that," I said softly. "And I keep showing up anyway." That made her glance up. Her expression was tired, worn thin from days of pretending. "You know what your father told me today?" she asked. I shook my head. "He said you look at me like you're waiting for something to happen, like you've already decided it will." The silence that followed was electric, dangerous, but honest. "And what did you tell him?" I asked. Her mouth twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I told him he was wrong." I took a few steps closer. "Was he?" She closed her eyes briefly, as if steadying herself. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Yes, I do," I said, voice lower now. "I'm asking you to stop running from something we both feel." She rose from her chair, slowly, deliberately. "And what happens after?" "I don't know." "Exactly," she said, though her tone was barely conviction. "You'll move on. I'll be the mistake that taught you restraint." I shook my head. "You're not a mistake." She stepped closer, too close, her perfume faint but dizzying. "Then what am I?" My hand lifted before I could stop it, fingers brushing the side of her face. She didn't move. Her breath trembled, warm against my wrist. "You already know," I whispered. Her eyes opened, glassy with something she was still trying to fight. "You have no idea how long I've tried not to want this." "Then stop trying." The words slipped out, raw, almost pleading. She laughed, small, unsteady. "You make everything sound simple. It doesn't have to be complicated." "Yes, it does," she said, voice breaking. "Because I care. Because it means something." We stood inches apart. Her hand pressed against my chest as if she meant to push me back, but her palm didn't move. "This isn't just about wanting," she said. "It's about what comes after. Then let's deal with after when it comes." The words hung there, suspended between us. Her hand slid up, fingers brushing my collar. The contact was almost nothing, yet it made everything else disappear. The city, the noise, the rules we'd built around ourselves. I leaned in, close enough to feel her breath, close enough that the air itself seemed to hold its own heartbeat. "Clara," I murmured, her name almost a confession. Her eyes lifted to mine, wide and wet and unguarded. "If this happens," she whispered, "there's no going back. Then don't look back." A beat, a breath, and then her forehead rested against mine. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just the quiet surrender of two people who finally stopped pretending. The moment stretched, soft, trembling, inevitable. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. "I understand you now." I nodded. "And I understand you." Neither of us moved away. Not why it was morning when I saw her again. A quiet, gray morning that smelled like wet concrete and coffee. The world felt softer somehow, as if it knew the storm had already passed. She was sitting on a park bench, coat wrapped tight around her, eyes half lost in thought. I wasn't sure if she'd been waiting for me, but when I stopped in front of her, she didn't look surprised. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked. Clara shook her head with a faint smile. "Haven't really slept in days." I sat beside her, careful but close. The space between us was small. Not the careful kind we used to keep, but the kind that meant something had already shifted. "I kept thinking," she said quietly, staring ahead, "about how wrong it all looked, about how much easier it would be to just forget. And," she finally turned to me, "and I realized I don't want to forget." Her honesty hung in the cold air between us, visible like breath. I looked at her, really looked, and saw it then. The exhaustion, the fear, the calm acceptance underneath it all. She wasn't trying to be brave anymore. She just was. "I don't want to make your life harder," I said softly. "You've already given enough." She smiled at that, small and tired. "You don't make it harder." You just make it honest. The city sounds around us faded. Car doors, birds, the wind moving through wet trees. All background to the quiet weight of what we weren't hiding anymore. After a while, she said, "People will talk. Let them," I said. She laughed under her breath. "You say that now. I'll say it again when they do." There was a long silence. Then, almost unconsciously, her hand slid toward mine on the bench. When our fingers touched, neither of us pulled away. It wasn't dramatic or loud or cinematic. Just warm, real. "I kept waiting for something to feel wrong," she whispered. "But it doesn't." "Because it isn't," I said. Her eyes lifted to mine, searching. Still cautious, still human. And then she leaned in, resting her head lightly on my shoulder. My hand tightened around hers, thumb tracing slow circles across her skin. We sat like that for a while, no rush, no fear left to chase away. Just the steady rhythm of two people who'd finally stopped pretending that what they had was temporary. When she finally spoke again, her voice was almost a murmur. "Maybe this won't be easy." "It won't," I said. "But it's real." She smiled, eyes closed. "Then that's enough." I turned slightly, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Not a claim, not a promise, just a quiet acknowledgement of everything we'd already said without words. The sky began to clear, pale blue breaking through the gray, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like the world wasn't watching. We stayed there until the wind shifted and the light grew softer, fingers still intertwined, neither of us needing to say what came next. It was already understood. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?